welcome back. You're still watching Nile Article, and I'm honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Dr. Ahmed, Alaa, the member of the Egyptian Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you very much once again for being with us tonight. I would like to ask about the foreign policy agenda for Egypt and the political leadership under President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi for the past 12 years. How balanced is it, in your opinion, regarding the bilateral ties between Egypt and Europe, between Egypt and the Mediterranean countries, Egypt and Africa, as we did see today and for the past couple of days? How balanced is it, and how hard is it to be keeping this balance?
If we have a historical look about how Egypt actually worked with the global powers globally, we find that under Nasser, Egypt was very pro the Eastern Bloc. We see that after Sadat, we had a big mind shift, and we went and we became pro the Western Bloc. However, starting Mubarak and under Sisi, we are maintaining this balance. However, under Mubarak, the African relationships were not at its best.
Yes.
However, now with the President Sisi, I can say that he's the one with the most balance between all different blocks, whether it's the Western Bloc represented by the US and European Union, or the Eastern Bloc represented by China and Russia, or Africa. And we can see that represented in numbers. We can see that when it comes to the trade, for example, the trade balance between Egypt and all those partners has grown significantly in the last 10 years.
Yes.
We can see that in partnerships and strategic partnerships. We can see that Egypt keeps on signing a number of partnerships across all these sectors. We see that Egypt did not close any of its embassies in any country, because if you close an embassy in one country, reciprocity will happen and they will close their own embassy in here.
Yes.
And the presence of Egyptian embassies abroad and of foreign countries' presence in terms of representation through their embassies here in Egypt, also this gives Egypt a very big weight. So in my own professional opinion, I believe Egypt is currently in the best balanced position that happened in the past maybe 50 years. And I believe that it's not easy at all, because you're always dealing with conflicted situations, because if you're pro the US a little bit more than China, China will not be happy with you, and vice versa. So maintaining this, it's not easy. If you take the same situation and you look at Africa, Egypt has very good ties with certain African countries that are not on good terms with each other. So how to maintain that? Because if you're friends with one, then the other can consider you a foe and can consider you like one of its enemies. So maintaining that, it's not easy at all. However, I believe the Egyptian diplomacy is one of the best in the world. Our diplomats are extremely well trained. They know what they're doing, and they know how to do it. They know how to be real diplomats. They know how to ensure those relationships in a very smart way. And this is why Egypt is currently, we use this as an example.
Yes.
Maybe some people see it as an easy example of mediating between Iran and the US in the middle of a war. However, this is not an easy thing. Other than this, why not any of the other 194 countries that are members of the UN didn't do it? Because it's not easy, because no one has those relationships.
Yes, and one of the main doctrines adopted by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the political leadership, and one of the main foreign policy agenda creeds for Egypt is dialogue over confrontation, which has given us an edge in terms of the political engagement within Europe, or with Europe in general. How do you see the importance of adopting such a doctrine?
As you said, conversation and dialogue is the key for any progress happening, because conflict doesn't lead to progress. Conflict leads to winners and losers.
Yes.
And no one wants to be a loser. So everyone keeps on fighting up until their last breath to be winners. However, when you lose, this sets you back, and by here it sets your country back decades ago. And we saw that unfortunately in other Arab countries that were set back decades ago because of the conflict they had in their own country. But Egypt always pushes for the dialogue and pushes for discussions, because this is where conflicts can be resolved, and history tells us this. There are so many incidents where conflicts were very strong across history, across civilizations, across different cultures, but dialogue is what helps problems to be solved. For example, let's use the First World War as an example.
Yes.
Eventually, after all parties were fed up, and yes, there was a clear loser. However, it's a conversation that led to signing the peace accord. So again, it's always conversation, it's always dialogue. It's not easy, it takes time. However, when you build the needed trust between the conflicting parties, you become the mediator with the power. You're the one who knows how to assess the situation, who knows what's the best compromise that can be reached. You know which points that party A can actually give up and which points party B will never give up. So you play this role, and thus you reach significant milestones.
What about the importance of consultation in terms of what is happening in the region nowadays, in the war between the United States, Israel and Iran, in the Gaza Strip and the latest developments for the Palestinian cause? How do you see the significance of the consultations going on between Egypt and the European capitals in general?
I see that, again, Egypt is playing a significant role behind closed doors. I know that Egypt always keeps on trying to mediate, keeps on always trying to bridge the gap, always tries to ensure that all different parties listen to each other, understand each other better. And Egypt, the Egyptian diplomacy always keeps on ensuring that all doors are opened between conflicting parties, because Egypt knows that eventually those conflicts will come to an end. And Egypt is not only relying on the European partners, but of course we're opening doors in Paris, in London, in Brussels, in whatever. But also Egypt is opening doors in Washington, D.C. And we're not just relying on opening doors with the White House, but the Congress and many other important players in the game. So again, Egypt doesn't only rely on the political channels, but always uses other diplomatic channels and other, sometimes maybe channels that no one thinks of.
Yes.
But Egypt is very smart, and the Egyptian diplomacy is very smart when it comes to utilizing unutilized resources to reach its objectives, to reach peace.
On the other hand, we have spoken about the win-win situation between Egypt and the African countries, for example. But for the European countries, it also can be applied to be translating the political ties, the enhancement, the strengthening of the bilateral ties on the political level to the economic front. How do you see this being translated? When can we see the maximum benefits of it?
So I always believe that politics and economy are simply two sides of the same coin, and they always go hand in hand. This is why we have political economy. However, I believe politics is the building block for the economic cooperation and economic support. And we see that when Egypt has good political relationships with European countries, we see that the partnerships, or to be more specific, the economic partnerships keeps on growing. So did we reach the maximum? Absolutely not. Is there still room for improvement and for growth? 100% yes. Are we going in the right direction? For sure. Are we going fast enough? I believe that from Egypt we're trying to go as fast as possible. However, our European partners are the ones sometimes pressing on the brakes and would want to slow down the speed we're moving ahead with, for political reasons, not for economic reasons, but for political reasons. And we can see, for example, the CBAM is a clear example of how our European partners are trying to slow those partnerships. The carbon border adjustment mechanism, where the European Union will more or less ask Egyptian exporting bodies to pay taxes, more or less, on the products they export to the European Union based on their production of emissions.
Yes.
So again, this is a tool where they are pressing on the brakes. Is it the right thing for them to do? In their own point of view, yes, but in our point of view, this is decelerating the kind of partnership and the kind of speed that we want to be proceeding with. This is why, if we find that a certain door will be, I wouldn't say closing, but it's not as open as it should, and it's not accommodating our needs. Here comes the balance that we were discussing earlier, that we can easily shift, or not, of course, not 100% shift, but we can start focusing a little bit more with any of our other friends that will help us grow and will help us develop with the speed that we aspire.
Yes, Dr. Ahmed Alaa, the member of the Egyptian Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much. It was an honor.
The honor is all mine. And we'll be having a quick break. Stay tuned.